In the first session, we covered the questions: what is Christianophobia? What are the possible causes, manifestations, and effects of Christianophobia? And today we're going to focus on the proper and improper responses to Christianophobia. My first question to you to start this conversation will be, what different forms, levels, or degrees does Christianophobia take around the world?
Ava wants to answer that one.
Who do you want to ask? Who do you want to go to first?
I really need to hear that.
Yeah, I just like to pass the buck to someone else. Usually.
Looking at even at the word Christianophobia, I have always struggled with the phobia aspect of this, and I was, and I don't want to wax preacher like here, but I was looking in John 15, and where Jesus was saying, if they hate you, don't be surprised because they hated me first, and if they hate me, they hate the Father. And the idea was not being afraid, but it was being hated. And I understand the generic sense of phobia, where it's someone that's afraid of you or doesn't, is attacking you, etc. But in my opinion, if we that text from John 15, 18 through 25 says exactly where we are, and I read it, and it was really instructive to me. But just a couple of other things, and we can either move on from this or whatever. But in 2 Timothy 1:7, it says that we shouldn't be timid or have cowardice or have fear, as in phobia, but dunamis, but power. And so I think so much of how we deal with this issue of Christianophobia has to do with our security in our identity. And that's what I would challenge the young people today, is not learn how to yell back or learn how to take it on the other cheek or stand smiling in front of a drummer or, whatever it is, but it's to be strong in our identity and who we are. And so perfect love casts out fear. And there's no fear in love. And if we love people, we can love the people that are attacking us, because it has nothing to do with liking them nor trusting them. It has to do with wanting God's best for them. And so if I'm secure in my identity, it will affect how I behave in the circumstance of persecution or attack. So those are kind of my thoughts that really helped my thinking in this area, to know, look, it's not really what is the best tactic to resist or to confront, but the best thing is to know my identity. And that sounds a little more vague, I guess, but to me, it gives me a lot of power to know how I respond to this kind of thing.
Because for me, the way I see it is that, it all depends on sort of the context that these challenges come in. On the one hand, if you have someone who is anti-Christian who comes and sort of says bad things to me about about Christianity, or if I'm personally targeted, then my response in that situation, again, let's just say, for example, what Dave's saying, you should love and patience and all of that. And there's also a social aspect as well, because it also can say the mentality that seems to sort of grow, in particular societies. For a simple example would be, and it's right now in Korea, with all these what's called the coronavirus going on in Korea and stuff. So recently, many of the new, or at least the newer victims of this virus have been Christians, because of people do gather in churches, and so what happens is that whoever, if you have one person who's infected, then they do spread. And so then you have the mentality in a non-Christian sort of a country that looks at Christians as sort of the enemy of the country, because just for going to church you now become a target, and so now you have anti-Christian sentiments as well growing here as well. And so what should the response be? So personal attacks, yes, definitely love and everything, but I think also should be also, for example, the question of Christians as a community.
Mhm.
What should be the response to the outside community that may exhibit, just say, anti-Christian sentiments? You know, so I think that's also something that we need to really think and discuss.
A couple of things. Uh, I think the word Christianophobia is useful in the context of how society talks about phobia, homophobia, Islamophobia, and I think that in that context it's useful, and so just so that people in society can know what we're talking about. There's no, uh, there's anti-Semitism, but that anti-Christianism wouldn't really fit because of such certain dynamics of what Semitism is. But having said that, there's definitely different levels of Christianophobia. There's just people who are just rude to you because you're a Christian. That's one level. All the
Mhm.
way to around the world where Christians are being thrown in jail and being killed for being Christian. You know, and everything in between. And of course, our response has to mirror that. The response to someone who's rude because they're a Christian, definitely we're looking at things such as turning the other cheek and being above the situation, which, I wish I could say I always do that, but I can't say I always do that. But, something to strive for. But that's not, I don't think that's the response when people are actually being killed for being a Christian. I think that, we should speak out for those who are being oppressed. In the United States, that highest level we're not seeing. We're not seeing people thrown in jail and being killed because they are Christians. We're seeing lower levels of that. But I still think we're seeing situations that require a pushback, uh, done done in as loving a way as possible, but definitely a pushback. And so, the levels in the United States are things such as discrimination, mistreatment, not being thrown in jail, not being killed, not being hired for jobs. I think when things are wrong, I think that it's incumbent upon us to speak out against that which is wrong. And it happens to be other Christians, then that should be it as well. So yeah, so different levels of Christian phobia require different responses, and what is appropriate at lower levels is not appropriate at higher levels, and vice versa.
Oh, one of the organizations that is paying attention to the persecution of Christians around the world and is a good resource in general is Open Doors USA. And they have some statistics here, just like in the last year, and this is using the 2020 World Watch list. It says that over 260 million Christians living in places where they experience there are over 260 million Christians who live in places where they experience high levels of persecution. High levels of persecution. Those are multiple countries with different types of governments. So it's not like it's not relegated to a particular type of system of governance. 2,983, almost 3,000 Christians were killed for their faith just last year. 9,488 churches and other Christian buildings were attacked, and 3,711 believers detained without trial, arrested, sentenced, or imprisoned. So a lot of these statistics are not reported. We don't see in front covers of news because they're not trending or for other reasons that we could probably discuss. But the persecution of Christians do vary, and these are the more serious ones. So it would be interesting to see in this conversation maybe a balance, or just from your perspective, from your life experience, you can just chime in wherever you can speak to these things. And I know, Dr. Yancey, you're more focused on the United States, but I know Dave has a more international context, and Dr. Gabriel as well has seen different things from in two different countries